I bet you're just as excited as I am because this patch is wild. What's up, Summoners? My name is Nathan Ng and I'll be your host for our patch 11.18 rundown. This video will cover all of the changes for the new patch and also provide you with an updated tier list for all 5 roles. Be warned, this patch is content heavy. There are countless buffs coming up and you do not want to miss out. Maybe your main made the list. Quick disclaimer, these lists are unordered and they are subject to change in our mid-patch update coming up later this patch, which you absolutely don't want to miss out on, so hit that sub button. Let's kick things off with the video by talking about the new skins. Who doesn't love new skins? This patch we got a new set of Pentakill skins coming up. League's heavy metal band has returned. Pentakill 3 Karthus, Kale, Mordekaiser, Olaf, Sona, Yorick, and even a skin for Viego are now available. Finally, Hex Extra Sona can be unlocked as well. Check them out as they look fantastic. Now, let's go ahead and talk about some balance. This patch features a couple of system buffs to start. Let's talk about Predator. While previously underused, it received some big buffs this patch. Its ramp-up time was reduced from 1.5 to 1 second, and the bonus movement speed is up from 45% to 60%. Both the functionality and the strength of this rune are stronger than before, and I expect laners as well as junglers to use it more as a result. The next buff is for Umbral Glaive. The price was reduced from 2600 to 2400, and the lethality is down from 12 to 10. Although it was a loss of a small amount of lethality, 2400 gold is one of the cheaper power spikes that you can purchase. Characters looking for a quick power spike can pick one up and then snowball early or try to just quickly get back into the game. After these changes, the item definitely comes out more gold efficient than before. Now, let's go ahead and talk about some balance changes on the champions for the top lane. Like I said, there are a huge number of changes this patch. First up, we have Camille, who has been nerfed. The reason that she was nerfed is because some of her counters are also receiving changes this patch. I'm sure this is a reason amongst a bajillion other things. Her passive has received a huge nerf in the early game, with the cooldown going up from 16 to 10 seconds based on level to 20 to 10 seconds. This creates longer windows of power advantages against her in the early game, making Camille much less of an oppressive pick. In spite of this, we'll leave her in the OP tier. It's close, and our analysts think that there's a chance that she drops into the S tier this patch, but we want to see how big the effect really is, especially because some of her harder matchups are easier than before. While OP picks are a great way to climb, great fundamentals and understanding of the game is more reliable. We're now offering free trials on our website Pro subscription, so check out our link in the description down below. You can even gain access to courses by your favorite pros, and also receive a free coaching session after signing up for a 3-day free trial. Next is a nerf to Jace, who currently is being played a ton in professional games. He's also very popular in solo queues since he's a solid blind pick, and that can almost always at least force a farm lane. His AD is reduced from 54 to 52, a minor but yet impactful nerf since he relies heavily on his range poke in the early to mid game. We'll be leaving Jace into the B tier following this nerf. Renekton is in a similar situation, holding a high amount of competitive presence. His stun duration on his Empowered W is going down from 1.5 seconds to 1 second. This is a pretty big nerf, making his only CC ability even worse. His damage in early game is still solid, but we've decided to move him down to the B tier. Mundo received a big change as well. He received a jungle change as well as the one that affects him in both roles. The jungle change is that his Q's max damage against monsters is up from 300 to 500 to 350 to 650. His ultimate received a bigger change, however. Instead of healing for 20% of missing health, he gains 15 to 25% of his missing health as bonus HP, and the max healing was reduced from 20 to 70% to 20 to 60%. If you build a Titanic Hydra, this is going to be a massive DPS boost in fights that you can cast your ultimate in. Mundo remains in the S tier, but this change definitely has potential with proper itemization to push him even further. Gangplank has needed a buff following his last set of changes. He received one this patch as his HP is up from 540 to 570 and the HP per level from 82 to 90. It's not too big and we'll still leave him in the C tier because of this. Singed received a pretty cool buff this patch. When he uses his ultimate, his poison now applies grievous wounds. This saves a ton of gold and more importantly, an item slot. Whether you're going for damage or acting as your team's main frontliner, you can now have access to free healing reduction. So, even if your teams don't build it, locking in Singed ensures that certain champions on the enemy team are kept in check. We'll be leaving him in the A tier as well, but there's definitely a chance that he moves up to the S tier simply because of the insane gold value on his buff. Finally, Urgot received a buff to his Q. The cooldown's going down from 12 to 8 seconds to 10 to 8 seconds, and the mana cost was reduced from 80 to 70. This is also a small buff and will be leaving his placement untouched. Outside of these changes, we have a couple of final ones to the tier list. Lucian has been underperforming heavily as a solo laner after his recent changes as intended. That said, he's doing well in the bottom lane and we moved him down to the C tier. Lilia was also going to be moved up to the S tier, but she was nerfed this patch and we'll be talking about the jungle section coming up. Fiora was swapped into the OP tier in place of Tom. Tom is still very powerful and you can still consider him OP. We just want to keep this tier limited though, and things are looking very good for Fiora this patch with some of the biggest lane bullies being nerfed. Our OP picks in the top lane are Fiora, Camille, and Irelia, followed up by Riven, Mordekaiser, Tahm Kench, Jax, Malphite, Wukong, Shen, Mundo, and Set in the S tier. Now let's run through the jungle. To start off the jungle, one of the best junglers, Lee Sin, has been nerfed. Even after previous ones, he remains the most popular and continues to pump out great results. Once again, the king of the jungle needs a nerf and his base AD was reduced from 70 to 68, hurting his early game pressure as well as his clear speed. This nerf does hurt Lee Sin, but we're confident that he can hold onto the spot in the OP tier in spite of it. Taliyah has been buffed since we haven't seen changes for her in forever. Q casts on Warg's ground now refunds 50% of the cooldown, and the Warg ground radius was reduced from 450 to 300. The duration of the Warg ground is now going down from 45 to 25 seconds. This makes it much easier for players to find unwarged ground and differentiate between which Q that they want to use. The shorter duration also means that if she ends up taking a fight in a similar spot later, it's more likely that terrain will have a reset back to normal. This will help her both out as a jungler and as a laner. Taliyah's placement remains unchanged this patch, but we do expect her to pop off in the mid lane. Next is Zed, and he has received a massive jungle buff. His passive now deals 100% bonus damage to monsters. That's a humongous increase in his clear speed, and he's worth keeping an eye on. Previous Zed buffs have been underwhelming, so we'll only move him up to the C tier this patch and continue tracking his performance as well. Qiyana also received some changes to help out her jungle. First, her base attack speed is going up from 0.625 to 0.688. Although her base health regeneration was lowered from 1.8 to 1.5, her Q now deals 25% against jungle monsters. The last change is that her E now deals 10 less damage than before at all ranks. With a massive increase in attack speed, Qiyana's jungle clear will be much better than before, and I'm sure players will begin testing the waters out with her. She's staying in the D tier for now, but we'll keep an eye out. Lilia has been adjusted this patch because she's been too strong of a top laner, ironically. This seems like an unintended result of a previous adjustment, so Riot is trying to push her back into the intended role. First, her base health regeneration was reduced from 1.5 to 0.5 seconds, and the growth from 0.75 to 0.55. Her passive large monster healing is going up from 18 to 94 to 28 to 105, and the Q passive duration from 5.5 to 6.5. Finally, her E's cooldown was reduced from 18 to 16. With less sustain in lanes but more in the jungle, the intended effect is obvious. These other small buffs are pretty significant though, and we'll be moving her up to the S tier as a result. Rumble was also changed this patch. This adjustment hurts him more in the jungle as it cuts down on some consistent early game DPS. His overheat attack speed bonus was changed from 50 flat to 20 to 80% based on level, and his W's cooldown was reduced from 7 to 6 seconds to just 6 seconds flat. The W change is a huge buff, not only because the cooldown is lower in the early game, but it helps with his heat management. The change to his overheat, however, cuts down on his clear speed significantly. He might have to go down to the D tier this patch, but we'll leave him in the C tier for now. Finally, Talon received a mid lane nerf and a small jungle buff. His Q's base damage was reduced from 65 to 165 to 65 to 145. However, his W will deal 50% more bonus damage to monsters, meaning that we'll have another clear speed god coming up. I agree with the jungle changes, but if you want to move him into the jungle, maybe try not to nerf his mid lane as well. Unless they just found him extremely OP in the mid lane, but that's just because of his bruiser build. I think you just nerf that and let him be played as intended, but hey, you know. In the OP tier, we have Lee Sin, Shaco, and Jarvan, followed up by Elise, Fiddlesticks, Zac, Kindred, Kayn, Kha'Zix, Nocturne, Shinzao, Amumu, and Lilia in the S tier. Next up is the mid lane. While Kog'Maw has been doing pretty well as a bot laner, the mid lane counterpart needs some assistance, which I mean, why, but you know, it's whatever. His E's AP ratio has been increased from 50% to 70%, and I'm surprised it was that low to begin with. But regardless, it's a big buff to his scaling and he'll definitely hit much harder in the mid to late game as a result. His play rate so remains rather low, but we'll look for any increases in popularity this patch. Yone was also buffed this patch. His W shielding per extra champion hit is up from 25% to 50%. Landing it on several opponents at once is going to be even more rewarding than before. He's currently underperforming in high elo, so this buff should go ahead and give him that push that he needs to succeed in chaotic teamfights. We'll be leaving him in the S tier. Zoe hasn't been doing too hot this season, and she ended the last patch below 49% in high elo. This patch, her E's cooldown was reduced from 20 to 14 seconds to 16 to 12. This is a huge buff, and we moved her up to the B tier, but I honestly don't want her in the game, so, you know, I'd be okay if she was just deleted. The last mid lane change was for Fizz. He lost some burst damage, but gained utility elsewhere to compensate. His passive now increases his damage reduction from 8 plus 2% of his AP against champions. Next, his W on-hit damage went up from 10 to 30 to 20 to 40. In spite of these buffs, Fizz's ultimate has been nerfed at all stages. Its weakest form, the Guppy, has its damage cut from 150 to 350 plus 80% AP to 150 to 300 plus 70% AP. Combo burst damage is going down from 225 through 425 plus 100% AP to 200 to 350 plus 85% AP. And finally, Gigalodon is down from 300 to 500 plus 120% AP to 250 to 400 plus 100% AP. This feels like a big nerf overall, unless you were like me and never landed his ultimate anyway, because I didn't play this champion. Anyway, the burst damage nerf is going to move him down to the A tier. The final change is that Tilia has moved up to the A tier because of the reduced cooldown on worked ground. With terrain resetting faster, Tilia has been able to clear waves more consistently. The OP mid lanes are Zed, Yasuo, and Akshan, followed up by Sylas, Talon, Annie, Kiana, Diana, Ahri, Yone, LeBlanc, Kassadin, Anivia, Katarina, Malzahar, Irelia, and Heimerdinger in the S tier. Now, let's run through the bot lane changes. If the Lucian buffs weren't enough, we have more changes coming to diversify the bot lane meta. Aphelios is the first one up for a nerf. He's been too strong in competitive play this season. With his dominance at the top level, Riot is taking the necessary measures to ensure diversity for Worlds, and nerfing Aphelios is the first necessary step in achieving that final goal. His AD is going down from 57 to 55, and I guess we'll just leave him in the A tier. Since we're talking about the bot lane, let me go ahead and ask you our question of the day. I know it's a little bit late into the video, but do you think that the bottom lane needs more melee carries? I personally would like to see more, but it's already so tough balancing the game to ensure marksmen remain viable. I like to see a game where you have more options in the bottom lane, but let me know your answers in the comments down below. There was that one time when mages were being played bot lane and then Irelia was being played bot lane, but marksmen were totally out of the game and they sucked, so that was different. I would like to see both of them coexisting. Who knows? Anyway, Ashe is also up for a nerf. She's well-rounded with plenty of damage and utility. Her early game is weaker now with the increased cooldown on her W from 14 to 4 based on ability rank to 18 and 4. The 4-second is huge and will make her less threatening as a lane opponent early on. As a result, we moved her down to the S tier. Kalista is next and her ultimate's utility was hit this patch. The knockup duration has been reduced from 1.5 to 2 seconds to 1 to 2 seconds. Kalista relies heavily on snowballing off of the early to mid game leads that she can get, and with her utility hit, she's going to come out weaker in solo queue as well as competitive play. However, the nerf isn't big enough for her to be moved down, so she still remains in the B tier. Kinda weird that they're nerfing her, but you know, whatever. I get it. People in high elo are absolutely nuts with her. Varus is also nerfed for his impressive record in competitive play. His non-champion attack speed bonus from his passive was lowered from 20% to 10, 15, and 20% at levels 1, 7, and 13 respectively. Also, his base AD is reduced from 61 to 59. Thus, his early game is weaker than before, but he still scales up just to be as strong as before. He remains in the B tier as well. Draven has received an absolutely massive change. His ultimate will now execute enemies that have less health than the number of League of Draven stacks that he has. At all ranks, this makes Draven much more terrifying of an opponent. There's that chaotic X factor, knowing that the longer you wait before you kill him, the more likely he's going to pop off during a team fight. With enough stacks, you can easily cheese a crucial kill in the mid-game fight, especially if you haven't had an earlier opportunity to cash out. We'll be keeping him in the S tier, but expect his win rate to go up noticeably after this change. Jinx has been underperforming and has been buffed this patch to help. Her Q's mana cost is going down from 20 flat to 16 to 20 based on level. Even a 4 cost mana reduction is significant since it literally costs her mana to basic attack from far range. It adds up and makes a difference since you don't typically build mana regeneration for her. We'll leave her in the A tier, however. She just might feel better to play. Kai'Sa is also underperforming, and for the sake of competitive diversity, she was also buffed. To help her make a comeback, her E's cooldown was reduced from 16 to 12 to 16 to 10. More mobility helps her out, especially since one of her biggest strengths is how safe she is during fights. Kai'Sa will also remain in the A tier. We also have a buff from Misfortune. Her ultimate is even stronger this patch because it includes 2 more waves of cannonballs. The numbers has been increased from 12 to 16 waves to 14 to 18. Considering how heavily she relies on her ultimate when compared to other marksmen, this is a helpful change that also solidifies her unique identity. Even with this buff, we don't expect Misfortune to see a significant boost in her win rate because people usually just walk out of her ultimate anyway. Adding 2 more just gives more opportunity to leave. Like my ex. I'm over her, I swear. Finally, Twitch received a buff to his ultimate. The AD bonus is up from 30 to 60 to 40 and 70. The extra 10 AD is pretty big, especially early on where it can potentially lead to picking up a kill early and snowballing. We'll leave them in the B tier, however. That leaves us with our 2 OP picks, Ziggs and Samira. Following them in the S tier are Ashe, Ezreal, Vayne, Jhin, Tristana, Draven, and Kog'Maw. Finally, let's talk about supports. The changes are still numerous here, so let's run through them. First, Thresh was nerfed once again. Running it back, we have a pretty significant one this patch with the 5 movement speed nerf, taking him from 335 to 330. Thresh is severely impacted by this since champions that can outrun him have an easier time escaping from his Q. Less movement speed also means less pressure in lane, and it also means that roaming takes longer than before. Next is E's max bonus magic damage is down from 100% to 200% AD, plus 1 per soul to 80 to 200% plus 1.5 per soul. While this does help with scaling, it's a big early game nerf where the damage arguably counts the most. We'll be leaving him in the S tier as he'll still remain a versatile and powerful support. Trundle support has also been gaining a lot of popularity and Riot is nerfing it. The E slow is going down from 32 to 60% to 30 to 46%, and this also slightly hurts him in the jungle. He'll still be a solid answer to tanks, but his utility is weaker than before and the pillar max right now may not be the move. With this change in mind, he's now in the B tier. Karma was also in need of follow-up buffs after her last adjustments. This patch, her armor was increased to 26 to 28, and her E's shield value was increased from 80 to 260 to 90 to 270. We will be leaving Karma in the A tier after the small buff. Morgana has also been buffed this patch, arguably because there are so many more enchanters in the meta. Her E's cooldown was reduced from 26 to 18 to 24 to 16. As a result, she continues to be an excellent answer to hard crowd control and also is more rewarding than before. She remains in the S tier moving forward. In spite of the growing popularity of enchanters, Soraka still doesn't see much play. To increase her value as a pick, her ultimate now clears grievous wounds from her targets. This adds a ton of skill expression, especially during chaotic teamfights. Knowing when to purge grievous wounds from your allies and then healing them immediately after literally saves their lives from certain death and allows them to continue playing the game and dealing damage. This change is honestly huge and Soraka is moving up to the A tier. Again, Yuumi's passive was buffed. The cooldown was lowered from 18 to 6 to 14 to 6 seconds. Why? Although this forces her to be more interactive early on, it's a huge early game buff that will make the levels 1 to 4 feel less like a 1v2 for her laning partner. I guess it's an exciting buff for bot laners not only because of the Yuumi buffs, but because overall, there's gonna be much more diversity with all these changes. Anyway, Yuumi is still in the S tier. I mean, she got buffed after all. Our OP picks are Leona, Lulu, and Sona, followed up by Blitzcrank, Thresh, Morgana, Nautilus, Maokai, Zyra, Senna, Nami, and Yuumi in the S tier. Nami has popped off hard after her last buffs and ended the patch with a 52% win rate. I'd argue that she earned the spot, and if you play bottom lane, you'll probably have witnessed it firsthand of how strong of a laner she really can be. That concludes our patch 11.18 rundown. I hope you guys enjoyed it because my voice is currently dying from it. Anyway, let me know what you guys thought in the comments down below and also check out the description to join our Discord. If you guys want to go ahead and check me out on stream, I stream at twitch.tv/Nathan_ing and I play some League of Legends on Wednesdays, so really hope to see you guys there. Anyway, I wish you guys the best of luck this patch and remember to continue staying safe during these times. Anyway, I wish you guys the best of luck during this patch and remember, stay safe, stay healthy, and have a wonderful day. Take care.